When you guys talked to me yesterday, I wanted to say this. You have always been like one of the branches of that burning bush, year after year, on fire for Jesus Christ, to this day. You folks raised me. I could have been raised in some other circle. I wasn't. I spent years learning the extent to which you walk your talk. So it's hard for me to refuse you when you advocate for something. Please allow me to advocate for something too. The crux of what we're covering here is pathology, not disagreement, King. Here's the example. When you're strong enough to destroy palindromic speech with Stoic non-reactiveness, you will discover that the people sent by narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths are triggered by your non-response. Narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths don't just emotionally abuse their intended targets. They abuse their supporters by putting them in a position where the inability to complete a mission of punishment will emotionally trigger them. That's a sign of predation. Today's red flag is cult-likeness. World-renowned psychologist and professor of psychology, Dr. Sam Vaknin, discusses the three roles in a smear campaign. The first role is the role of the inducer, the cult leader of a smear campaign.
So, the first function in the smear campaign is a psychopathic cult leader. The psychopathic cult leader usually masquerades as a benevolent guru. He is self-righteous, he is moralizing, and he projects an image of empathy. He affords succor, compassion, affection, and a generalized love of humanity. And this is, of course, all intended to disguise the projection, because it's a psychopath, and all psychopaths are grandiose, so it's a grandiose psychopath and a cult leader, which is a very, very negative person, to use a British understatement. This kind of person has to disguise reality, to disguise his or her true nature. And this person within the smear campaign is known as the inducer. The inducer induces the smear campaign. It is the inducer who comes up with the narrative flow, the core story, and how the story can evolve and manifest in a multiplicity of ways.
The second set of roles in a smear campaign are the roles of exploiters, often played by narcissists who demonstrate paranoia and false courage.
The exploiter, the hitchhiker, if you wish, the free rider, sublimates her paranoia. In other words, she renders her paranoia socially acceptable. It's a form of ostentatious fake courage, false courage. This kind of person is likely to say, I am taking huge risks, I'm in danger, and I'm doing this because I'm highly courageous and brave, and I don't give in to my fear. I overcome it for the sake of truth and for the sake of exposing wrongdoers and evil people, etc., etc. They have this self-justifying narrative, but at the core of it is paranoia. These people are highly paranoid. They are clinically paranoid, actually. And the failure, their inability to garner attention, or as much attention as they believe they deserve, renders them collapsed narcissists. So the exploiter is a collapsed narcissist. Now, usually there's a single cult leader, but sometimes multiple exploiters. So that's the second function.
Sometimes sociopaths may be part of that second layer instead of narcissists.
And this shape-shifting triad of shape-shifting triumvirate recruits people with grievances, people who are anyhow angry, people who are hateful, people who are envious, grievances which are real or imagined. The cult leader, the exploiters, and the slaves recruit other people who are vulnerable, because, as I said, they're full of rage. Now, the people who are recruited by the triad divide themselves into two groups. They are the proselytizers, those who are trying to convert other people to the cause. So they go around spreading the message of the cult leader, smearing the target, collecting evidence, acting brave, collaborating with the exploiters, leveraging the resources of the slaves.
A few quick points. Whatever is obtained in this manner is fruit of a poisonous tree. This is a satanic and utterly unreasonable garbage take on truth and justice. God gave us Mosaic law over 3,000 years ago, the basic tenets of which are still 100 times superior to this fundamentally fake morality play. Dr. Vaknin describes the 3 layers of text in a smear campaign.
And within the smear campaign, there are canonical texts. These are the texts that cannot be tampered with, cannot be challenged, cannot be undermined, cannot be examined critically. These are the texts issued forth by the cult leader. The cult leader says, for example, this man is evil. This man belongs in prison. This man should be dead. And this is a canonical text. You can't challenge.
So the canonical texts are the things that cannot be questioned. To which I say, the canonical texts, therefore, are demonic. The threat against questioning the canonical texts consistently is experiencing degrees of rejection from the group, or you may even be expelled. The second layer of texts in a smear campaign are what Dr. Vaknin calls exegetical texts, interpretations of the canonical text by exploiters and slaves.
And then there are other types of texts, exegetical texts. These are texts that interpret the canonical text. So, for example, this man is evil because of this and that reason. He's a narcissist, psychopath, whatever. So these are the exegetic, the interpretative texts, which are generated by the exploiter and by the proselytizers, usually.
The final layer of texts in a smear campaign are what Dr. Vaknin calls deconstruction and embellishment texts, statements that greatly exaggerate the claims of the canonical texts.
And then there's a third layer of deconstruction and embellishment, where the message and narrative, the fiction that underlies the smear campaign, becomes exaggerated, becomes embellished, becomes florid and colorful, and inflates and balloons, literally out of control. And then you have inane stories. If the initial canonical text claimed that this person has committed crimes, for example, then the embellished text or the deconstructed text would claim that these crimes were only minor, and actually there were much more egregious crimes committed that have been suppressed or were undiscovered hitherto.
These are psychological profiles and psychological insights provided by Dr. Vaknin. What are psychological profiles? A pattern of traits and behaviors that show up repeatedly across many cases. Psychological profiles are built through repeated observation and validated theory. The FBI employs psychological profilers. The picture on the left is a picture of the salary schedules of FBI profilers across the nation. Well, before we wrap up, I wanted to give you a look at our most familiar segment. You're probably like, Raj, you old vibe monger, you. I knew you were going to start talking about vibes already. To which I'd say, vibe monger, what's that? Yeah, let's talk about the highly important value of vibes. I've literally made thousands of videos about this. Vibes matter, not critical thinking. Don't do your homework. Now let's look at this concept. I would never call it a metacognitive moment or holy moment. No, I would call it a vibe check. Ask yourself, how am I being influenced by the people around me? You must perform these vibe checks frequently. The reason I say that is because narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths are known for a lack of empathy to such a severe degree that when you're in communication with them, you yourself will become psychopathic. You yourself will become narcissistic, etc. You may suddenly feel much more aligned with psychopathic ideas. You will be bloodthirsty. You will lack empathy. You will lack remorse. You will follow a mob mentality, and you will believe that the ends justify the means. And the ends justifies the means mindset is just a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath's sickness. But as righteous soldiers for Christ, we must understand that we cannot achieve Christ-like ends without Christ-like means. Christ on the cross offered this up instead of rage. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because in the end, it's not about what we accomplish in life. It's about character development. We do not overcome evil with evil. We overcome evil with good. Please reach out to me. You're a real one, a transparent person. Not everyone is. Much love, and God bless.